The next bull I shot was on a solo backcountry trip. It was actually on opening day of archery season. Backpacked like 8 miles into the zone, shot a bull opening evening right in the bottom of a big giant canyon. And it took me 4 days to get that thing out. So that season I really learned the value of a heavy arrow and how that impacts penetration. Grizzly Stick had actually sent me some arrows, and so I was hunting with those that year. They were 700 grain arrows, and I had 125 grain head on the front of that thing. So 825 was the total arrow weight, which is like almost double of what I'm shooting now. So 2 things happened with that. First off, my arrow had a very, very, very strong arc to it. If I was off by like a yard or 2, I would completely miss. But having a really heavy arrow like that, it hit so incredibly hard. So I shot the elk right at 40 yards, did a complete pass through. That arrow didn't even like act like it wanted to stop. It went through and went, it like bounced off the ground after hitting that thing. So after that experience, I've definitely put a lot more effort into trying to maintain a heavy arrow as well as put a bunch of weight up front. So the setup that I'm using now, I stack the front of the arrow with extra weight. Any little thing you can do like that is going to help with penetration. I'm not a big believer in shooting a real light arrow for hunting. It's kind of like hitting something with a toothpick versus hitting something with like a pole vault. You know, the pole vault is going to hit so much harder and have so much more momentum versus a toothpick. It's going to go like doing. My current setup I think is around 450 grains. It could be heavier, but for elk and thick boned, heavy high, whatever animals, more weight is a good thing. On my next archery elk, I learned a couple really important lessons. First off, I learned how far elk can move between their summer range and their rutting area. I had a bunch of trail cameras set up, and way up high in the mountains, I got footage of this pretty cool bull. He's a 6x8, and he's just like hitting this wallow hard, and then mid to late August, he completely disappears. Never saw that bull again on camera. Lo and behold, middle of archery season, I was just chasing bugles and I intercepted this bull with a bunch of cows. I didn't look at his antlers that long. I had about a 3-second window to decide if I wanted to take a shot or not. And I was like, yep, he's a shooter. When I got him, I realized that it was that bull, and he was almost 8 miles from where he was summering. And between end of August and early September, I think in the course of one evening, he did that entire move. He left his big bachelor group that was up in the high country, and he went way out into these areas where the cow elk were at. That was a very important lesson. The other lesson was that my target panic was almost incurable until I discovered this release right here. This is a little hinge release, but more on that in a sec. So prior to arrowing this elk, I knew I had target panic, and I'd been working really hard that spring and that summer to try to combat it, try to rejig my mind so that I wasn't having target panic. So I shot the knock-on, I think it's called the silverback, and it's the true back tension. And I got really good at shooting that thing. And there's no trigger on it, it's a true back tension release with a safety. Amazing tool. My hope was that I was like, okay, I'm gonna practice with the silverback, and I'm gonna get really good at it. And then right before hunting season, I'm gonna switch to a thumb release. I was doing very, very good with shooting the silverback. And then when I switched to the thumb release, I wanted a thumb because if I needed to, I wanted to be able to force the shot instead of being at full draw and just like waiting kind of for the arrow to go. And when I switched to the thumb, I shot it just like a back tension. I would kind of preload the trigger, and then I would just pull with back tension, pull until it would go off. It was awesome. It was literally the best I've ever shot my bow my whole life. So then it's archery season. I'm hunting with the thumb trigger, very confident with it. And here comes this bull. I draw the bow, and at this point, like, I can't even get my thumb on the trigger because I'm so excited. And instantly I went back to old habits. My old habit was that I would keep my finger off the trigger until I was basically ready to shoot. And then I'd bring my finger around and just slap the trigger. Obviously problems would arise from that, and I would just be spraying arrows all over. So when this bull pops out, he's at 20 yards, like top pin. It should be a very easy shot. I'm at full draw, and I'm shooting a thumb release, and so the trigger is here. My finger isn't even on the trigger, it's underneath. So I'm at full draw, this bull's at 20, it's like time to go. Instead of going through my process, which is preloading the thumb trigger and just pull, and then it breaks, I have my thumb underneath the trigger, And I just completely lose my mind. And my thumb just goes like, it just like whips around like this and just goes, wham! And I literally hit probably 3 feet right of where I was intending to at 20 yards. Completely lost my mind. I'm really upset with myself. Just like after 6 months of training with back tension and moving to a thumb, and then my first hunting experience with the new release, I completely botch it. Fortunately, I actually managed to clip some big artery kind of in his back leg somewhere. It was a terrible shot. It did take him 8 hours to expire. Basically lost the blood trail real quick, and but when I did, I just gave him a bunch of time, and my dad and I went in there and we found that elk in 30 minutes. And what we did was basically the lesson that I learned from my first archery bull: go in the direction where he came from and go find the thickest, nastiest, blow down, brushiest spot you can find. And that's exactly what we did. We grid searched just for a minute, and then we're like, okay, let's just go hit these couple real prominent zones that we think he might be in, and then we'll reconvene, because we were actually running out of daylight. We ran in, hit those 2 areas, and immediately found the bull. And he was, I think, 600 yards from where I shot him. Pretty lucky to find that bull. Pissed at myself for botching that shot so badly. After that, I went down a pretty good rabbit hole of trying to fix my target panic, and I think I have. And now I shoot this release right here. This is called a Sweet Spot Ultra 3. It's a hinge release, but it's got a safety. When you attach your D-loop and you draw it back, you keep the safety engaged so it can't go off. And then when you get to full draw and you're ready to shoot, you take the safety off. And because there's not like a finger, like an index or a thumb trigger on this, I mean, really what you have to do is, the trigger is doing this motion. But that's not a natural motion, at least for me, I'm not trying to force the shot by doing that. What I do instead is I take the safety off. With these 2 fingers, I put pressure on this. And then with back tension, I'm just pulling back, building tension until the shot goes. And I've shot 3 animals since switching to this release, and every single time I execute the shot as perfect as I ever have. I come to full draw, go through my process, the pin is on the animal. I'm just sitting here, I'm just pulling, pull, and then the shot goes. The shot will usually go between 2 and 3 seconds once I really start building the pressure. Yeah, I've made 3 great shots on animals since switching to this release, and it's been a total, I hate the word game changer, but it's really positively impacted my archery and made it so much more fun again. Because when I had target panic, it was so bad. I would hold the pin, didn't matter at what yardage, I would hold the pin like this far above the target, and then with my finger behind the trigger, I would drop my bow arm, and so the pin would actually drop onto the target, and then it kind of in sync, I would bring my finger around and slap the trigger. It led to some really poor shooting on my part, and I was kind of ready to give up archery. But since switching to this, and the other thing I've done is I've taken John Dudley's School of Knock. It's just a YouTube series. It's absolutely insane. Do it, get this release, do all the things, it'll change your life.